Good morning, family. If you have found this video, you are one of the 4 people to find it. Just joking. Probably about 7, maybe 17. We'll see. But today I want to talk about the church. Now, maybe you just clicked on this video and you heard the church and had a whole bunch of thoughts come up. Maybe you've had experiences with the church. Maybe you've had poor experiences with what you know of the church. But we're going to dive into something so much more than what we presently, and a lot of us understand to be the church. What is really meant by the church? What is the church? And in fact, I titled this video, and it will be a series called The Plan to Save the World. Because looking at the Bible, I see Jesus's plan to save the world as the church. And like I said a moment ago, not the church necessarily as we might understand it to be, but what Jesus intended it with the best of intentions and designed it to be. So I want to read a verse to you, and then I just want to break some stuff down. I'm going to get a little bit excited. We're going to have a little bit of fun, hopefully, or maybe you're like, oh, that wasn't fun. I feel all... Anyway, I want to read out of Matthew 16 real quick, one verse. Talking to Peter, Jesus says, "And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." So I want to cover 3 quick things in this very short video. Number 1, what is the church? Number 2, who is building it? And number 3, what is being built? Now the church, Jesus used this word, this was written in Greek, so Jesus was not speaking English. Translators translated it to the word we understand, the church. Now there is a whole etymological breakdown of this by someone on YouTube. Redeemed Royalty is his channel. He does a great job. Just search ecclesia. I'm not going to get into all of that today, but the word actually used by Jesus is the word ecclesia in the Greek. Now, this was the very first time that this word was used and recorded. And what Jesus was saying wasn't, I will build my sanctuary, I will build a building, I will build a following. He was saying something much deeper. And really quick, if we can rewind what this word ecclesia actually comes from, because again, this was the first time that it was used in this context. So ecclesia actually was something instituted by the Greek Empire, which was an aristocracy back in 580 BC, almost a little over 600 years before Jesus is bringing this to his followers. So ecclesia was a type and form of government that was of the people. It was actually a group of lay people it took government into the lay people's hand from the elites to decide what would happen with the nation, what would happen amongst the nation, how they would go to war, etc., etc. It was a group of people. It was a people, the lay people, that would decide together what steps they were going to take. And Jesus uses this word, ecclesia. Again, they're overtaken by the Romans, but the Greco-Roman Empire this time, they would have understood, the hearers would have understood exactly what Jesus was saying. He was saying, I will build my people. I will build my following of people. So that brings us to our understanding of the church. Jesus designed this whole thing not as a bunch of little pop-up places or big pop-up places wherever you attend that would be something that we're like, oh, I followed so-and-so church or Christian center or this and that. No, actually, there is one church. There is one church. It is the church designed by Jesus Christ. And I'm not talking about one denomination is the church, one style of doing things is the church. No, one Bible following, Jesus following group of people is the church. And we'll talk more about this part in another video, but that means denominations, different styles of doing things all over the world. Different churches that might not necessarily agree with one another. One church. That brings us to the next part of this. What is the church? I am not the church. They are not the church. We are the church. Now, if you're still with me and you're not a follower of Jesus, which I hope you're still with me, this has been done wrong in times past. It was once said that the single greatest cause of atheism in the world is Christians. Now, I refuse for this to be the future of the church, because what Jesus designed, ecclesia, is so much greater than the expression of things that have happened in the past. Now, I'm not saying all that's happened in the past or in present is bad. I don't want to slam on the church at all. I love the church. I love the body of people, though we're crazy, but I love the body of believers. You and I believe that we are called as one body, one family, one church, not a corporation, not this church incorporated. We are the church together, and God designed us in such a way that we would be able to reach this whole world as the plan to save the world. So what is the church? The ecclesia. It's a fellowship, a body of believers spanned throughout this world, spanned through different dialects, different languages, different methods of worship. If we are Jesus followers, Bible-believing Jesus followers, we are the church. So the question isn't what is the church? It becomes who is the church? You and I. The second question is, who is building it? Based on this verse, the very first time Jesus introduces and designs this whole thing of the church, what we know of the church, he says, I will build my church. Jesus will build his church. We are called via Paul to be co-laborers with Jesus. But if we understand Jesus, what he said earlier in the book of Matthew, that we are to be yoked with him because his yoke is easy and his burden is light. What happens then is we tie and cling ourselves to Jesus in such a way that we are along for the ride of what he is doing as he is building. So he will build his church. There is such a movement to how do you build a following of believers? How do you plant a church? How do you start a church? How do you get a church to grow? We have seminars and all of this stuff that if you've seen that and you've been turned off by that, I want to apologize. Again, the conferences and seminars and all that stuff is not bad. But if it becomes what I am building instead of what he is building, that's where things get off rails. That's where things become less beautiful. That's where things become more religious and more political. When we start co-partnering and co-laboring with Jesus in what he is building, and we begin building something. Now, language is really important. How we phrase what we're trying to get across. Maybe we say things, and again, I get the practicals of language, but maybe we say things like, you should come to my church, or I'm building my church, I'm growing my church, these different things. That so much so that it becomes easy to get off message and off mission that it's his church. And not it, we are his church. So he is building it. So therefore, what we do should be an extension of bringing people to Jesus, not to a meeting or style of the way that we want to point to Jesus, but to actually point to Jesus. So number one, who is the church is the better question. Number two, we are. Number two, who is building it? It's Jesus, because when he builds something, it's much greater than what we can build. And number three is what is being built. Now, this question is kind of already answered in the fact of the church, ecclesia, the body of believers. That has already been answered in point number one. But I want to camp out on this for a second, because it is so easy to get so off grid, so off base in building something that was never intended by Jesus to be built, that we miss the point. Because if we are building a building, if we are building a brand, if we're building a movement that just is attracting followers, but we are not building people, we've missed the point. Now, again, it's him building it, but are we co-laboring with him, or are we building? And what are we co-laboring with him in building? Because if we are not co-laboring in building what he is building, then we are building something that is not of his design. And what he is building is people. He came to seek and to save that which is lost. He came for people. And he left us, his kids, his family, in charge of running after people. So if we've become so focused on organization and structural emphasis and how to be the next big thing that we've missed out on people, we've missed the point entirely. The church is people. Again, I isolated am not the church. You and I are the church. And yes, we get it wrong. Sometimes even with the right emphasis on people, we get it wrong. But coming back to the point of, man, if we have the understanding that the church is a who, it's an us, it's what Jesus designed, is building and is moving forward to save the world, then we can end up back in the right place. So I'm going to end this video now, but stay tuned because I have a lot more that I want to say. The method of how we as a church can reach and love people. We're going to talk about some hot points, some things that I might get under some people's skin. But to you, unbeliever, if you're watching this, I want to say thank you for sticking with me. And I want to say to you that Jesus loves you. He is crazy about you. And so therefore his church, his body, his true body loves you. And we want you to be part of the family. All right, peace out, my friends. To the 7 people that watch this, I cannot wait to see you next time, and we're going to have a good time. Love you all. Love, peace, chicken grease. I'm famous enough because I'd rather be known by God than by men. Peace out.